There's been mixed reaction to the newly passed Electoral Amendment Bill. The bill is intended to allow individuals to stand for elections as independents at the national as well as provincial levels. But some political parties are not impressed. They say that the bill will only serve to benefit political parties. Good evening and welcome to Unfiltered. My name is Aldrin Simpier. So as we debate the issue tonight, we're also asking you, what does the new Electoral Amendment Bill mean for independent candidates? Remember that you can also join the conversation through our social media platforms using @Unfiltered SABC. That is the handle on Twitter. And then on Facebook, just search for Unfiltered SABC and you can find us on Facebook. Our guest this evening is the leader of the UDM, General Bantu Olomisa. We also welcome the co-founder of the New Nation Movement, Mr. Matomela, as well as outer spokesperson on electoral reform, Rachel, who's joining us this evening. General, let me start off with you. Good evening and thank you so much for making time for us. So why is the UDM rejecting this bill?
Good evening and good evening to our listeners and our panel, fellow colleagues. Well, you are speaking to a converted, because from day one when the UDM was launched in 1997, and subsequently in our manifestos, almost every of elections, we have been calling for a mixed system on the same scale as in the local government, but with bigger boundaries. So we are of the opinion that yes, the inclusion of independent candidates at national and provincial levels is a step in the right direction. But I don't think it has gone enough. That is why we were saying in Parliament that we must not cheat our citizens. Right now, where you are, you don't even know who is your member of Parliament. Even Mr. Matomela, who was leading among the leading lights, fighting for the freedom of our country when he was still a member of the ANC, and the Secretary General of SADC, knows that he cannot say who is his or her member of Parliament. So we need to change the situation a little bit, especially after the Zondo Commission has pointed fingers to the non-accountability of members of Parliament. At least the constituencies, if we mixed it like in the local government, we introduced a constituency system to work hand in hand with the proportional representation. Let's say 60% at least should be constituency-based members who have been elected, not just board the bus and not knowing, have no clue. And then when they are asked, even in the portfolio committees, or when they are outside doing their work, they cannot address these issues which are confronting us today.
Yeah. Mr. Matomela, let's hear your viewpoint and what do you make of this amendment bill, and also taking into consideration, of course, the decision that was taken by the Minister of Home Affairs to go with the opinion of the minority who were part of that Ministerial Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Andrew. I greet the panelists and the viewers out there. Thank you for this opportunity. The vision of the new nation is derived from the liberation movement, which was a cry of all the people of South Africa, carried in the spirit of what people know as a slogan, Amandla Gawethu, power to the people shall govern. That is the vision of the people of South Africa. So when we observed that the system is marginalizing the majority of the people of South Africa, it's only few who are in a position to take decisions on behalf of the country.
Yeah.
Then we looked at the Constitution, we realize that the Constitution is saying in Section 19 in particular, everyone is free to make political choices. Then it goes on saying people are free to form political parties, recruit for political parties, or campaign, and as well as campaign for a cause. And it says in 3B, everyone is free to stand for an office, and if he wins, to occupy that office. Now, that is what inspired us to challenge the Electoral Act in the first place, because we were convinced that it is unconstitutional.
But do you think in the adoption of this bill, it responds to the concerns that you've raised in that constitutional court?
This is an insult to the people of South Africa, let alone the Constitutional Court, because that Constitutional Court judgment is that everyone is free to make political choices, political parties, and individual citizens. But what is before us is just a continuation of the old system. The fundamentals which were supposed to be taken into account to allow citizens to nominate their own and have the power to recall them, like political parties, is not there, for example.
Yeah. Rachel, let's quickly hear from Outa's point of view, and will you be making any submissions to the NCOP, considering that the bill now moves there?
From my side also, good evening to all our panelists and our viewers, and thank you for joining us. Well, first of all, yes, as a civil society organization, the Organization on Doing Tax Abuse firmly wishes to operate within the public's interest. And we do feel called upon and our duty to participate effectively on behalf of the public. So this means that we will be making submissions to NCOP, and we've also engaged in the public participation rounds February and March this year, and also September. As Mr. Matomelo pointed out with the New Nation Movement court case, we were also amicus curiae, or friend of the court, with the original application. So this is something we feel very strongly about. One of the items also is, working in the public's interest and being the voice for the public. What we have found is the lack of meaningful public participation, but also education. And, that we've realized the majority of the public have only now become aware of the significance of this bill, and this bill being in front of the National Assembly. And now suddenly there is this talk on electoral reform, independence, and parties and constituency systems. But this education process should have started long ago. This process should have started with the Concord judgment back in 2020 already. It's more than 24 months, which is more than enough time to roll out education campaigns.
Okay, and when we come back, we're going to also look at some of the submissions that have been made, but also considering that the Home Affairs Minister is saying that one of the reasons that they've gone for this particular option, the one that has now been adopted in Parliament during that special sitting, the sitting that was taking place last week, is because of the 10th of December deadline that has been set by the Constitutional Court, which of course is an extension. But who should take blame for that? That conversation when we come back. And welcome back as we look at the amended electoral bill, which is now before the NCOP, and also asking you this evening, what impact do you think it will have for independent candidates who wish to participate in the local, wish to participate in the provincial as well as the national elections? Mr. Matomela, one of the issues that was raised by the Minister of Home Affairs when I spoke to him last week, and I asked him why they chose this particular bill, he says that it's because they need to meet a deadline, that December the 10th deadline that has been set by the Constitutional Court, which is an extension. And he also argues that it's very difficult to build 200 constituencies. What's your take on that?
Unfortunately, Andrew, what I can say is that the minister is just playing party politics, trying to defend the party position, which was given by cabinet from president, the whole cabinet, because this is a constitutional matter, which was part of the transitional arrangement. Schedule 6 of the Constitution states that after the first term, there must be an electoral act which will involve all the people to make parliamentarians accountable. So that is the first thing ANC should have done. They did not do it. Thereafter, they appointed the committee of Unfiltered. It gave details about constituencies. They even drafted a legislation for the ANC in 2003. ANC never implemented that. So you can even talk about the same committee, just team led by the former minister Valemusa. They choose to take a minority view instead of the why. It's because it favors them as a political party. So the minister is misleading South Africans because this matter has been before them since then. 24 months, in fact, they spent about, I would say, 20 months of the 24 months given to them. Effectively, they did nothing. So the issue here is not about the time frames, 10th of December. These are delaying tactics so that we are not ready for 2024. If we go to 2024, independent candidates will not be ready. So they hope that will give them at least an edge to compete with political parties like UDM and so on. They see the writing on the wall that the people of South Africa are not happy with them. They've been rejecting them for some time. Others stopped voting because of their behavior. Their conduct, in fact, is affecting Chapter 2 of the Constitution. It is in violation of Chapter 2 of the Constitution.
General Holomisa, would you be, as the UDM, keen on a suggestion that says, because we are speaking here about electoral reform, let's not rush this thing through. Let's rather give it time. Of course, there is also that the December 10 deadline that the Constitutional Court has set. But this is something quite fundamental to our democracy, to say, perhaps let's postpone it.
No, I would disagree with you on that because I've already gave you a way forward. What is needed here is for a legislation to be broadened. Rather, let me put it this way. The IEC, as well as the Demarcation Board, could draw up the boundaries for new constituencies between now and using the what you see now at local government level. The IEC should also be tasked with determining the threshold for the number of registered voters it would require to demarcate a constituency. This work is easy. The work has already been done. So they are just playing delaying tactics. Because now what is going to happen, if you are a member of the ANC, you have to have a constituency and people must believe in you, not what you see where you find that there are also thugs who make their way to parliament or as councillors. The honeymoon is over. They must accept that.
Okay. Rachel, how does this bill disadvantage independent candidates? And I wonder if you want to quickly reflect also on what the president had to say yesterday about that recommendation that came from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which also deals with the very important issue of accountability, that the president must be elected directly.
Well, let me start with the second one, on the reaction on the Zondo recommendations. We found it to be a very weak reflection on the recommendations, essentially regurgitating what has already been recommended by Zondo. and then very superficially reflecting on electoral reform that ought to happen. But we are facing the deadlines. There's not taken a hard stance on it. So once again, just shifting the responsibility onto Parliament to make it happen in some way. Now, Parliament is also part and parcel of the problem because they are the ones that should be conducting oversight over the executive. As we have now previously mentioned, since June 2020, as early as December of 2020, Monsieur Lekota already submitted a proposal, the Second Law's Electoral Amendment Bill. That is a good option on the table. This was 6 months later. So the Portfolio Committee for Home Affairs could have interrogated this option, and at least when the minister put this bill on the table, provided the public two options to critically engage with. Now, this bill, also known as the People's Bill, was effectively removed in February of this year. So you're removing your only other competitor. Now, you also asked as to how independents will be impacted by this bill. Now, essentially, you are putting independents to go upright against political parties that do have more resources, and actually even taking it further. Now, as an example, we refer to the barriers of entry, the number of signatures that are required to stand as an independent to show that you've got enough support. Now, approximately, if you're looking at the previous quotas, an independent must provide, let's say, 8,800 signatures to support them. If you are a political party and a new party that wishes to stand, you only require 1,000 signatures. So that is a massive disproportion. Another element is if you're a political party, currently you can stand in any province, you can stand nationally, and your votes are aggregated. And that means they all count towards the total, and then they work out the seat allocation for Parliament. Independents can stand in more than one region or in more than one province, but if I chose to stand in Mpumalanga and in Gauteng, and I get the most votes in Gauteng, effectively the votes that I got in Mpumalanga are thrown away. And my votes aren't total, they aren't put together. So now you get the people in Mpumalanga that stood in line to vote for me have wasted their time, that their vote does not count. And that is another constitutional issue that we have found.
Yeah.
Every vote must matter.
Indeed, every vote does matter. I would love to hear your take as well on this conversation that we're having this evening. What do you make of the amended electoral bill, which is now before the NCOP? And how do you think it will have an impact on independent candidates who would want to contest provincial as well as national elections? And welcome back as we get some closing remarks on the amended Electoral Act, which is a bill rather, which is now before Parliament. And remember that Constitutional Court deadline is on the 10th of December 2022. General Holomisa, a quick one on the deliberations around the bill. And I wonder, from your assessment and where you were sitting, did you get a sense that all MPs understood what this bill is and what's in the bill? And I also asked this on the basis of what former President Thabo Mbeki said over the weekend, that there was an NEC member of the ANC who was supposed to make a presentation somewhere on this bill and said flat right that they don't know what's in the bill.
In actual fact, you guys, you must stop painting everybody with the same brush. It was mainly the ANC members who have got majority who said they are not in favor of this. And of course, experience will tell you that they just carry the orders from the top seats or from their NEC. But if you look at the majority of the opposition parties, we did voice our concerns and rejected this draft bill. So I hope that if the NCOP doesn't want to listen, this matter will be taken back the way I see it. It will be taken back to the Concord for just their decision to see whether Parliament did go enough. Because whilst we appreciate that Concord cannot tell members of Parliament how to make laws, but at least I can assure you that the Concord would still feel that the public has been robbed in this draft bill.
Okay, and Rachel, your take on that, with what General Holomisa has said now. It's an issue, of course, that has been raised around the procedures that were followed. And OUTA, for instance, is an organization that was born out of a lack of proper procedure with the with our e-tolls in Gauteng.
Well, absolutely. And once again, it comes down to public participation. Now, to your question as to the complexity of the bill, I mean, if this bill was introduced in January of this year, and it was on the 10th, you're giving very little time for MPs to study it and get used to the complexity of it. Now, imagine the same for the public. How would they, without resources, understand the complexity and then go and engage in public participation rounds? So we certainly hope that there are more efforts towards education on this. And that is why we are easily more than 70 civil society organizations and other interested parties voicing the call and being a lot more vocal. We also strongly feel that, normally you start seeing political parties maneuvering in the election year, hand out T-shirts and food packs to get the voters to vote for them. But it should actually start now. Yeah. Now voter education should happen. We are seeing massive voter apathy. And the way this bill is being handled is only going to contribute to this. So as a civil society organization, we will keep on pushing this mandate and insisting transparency.
Mr. Matomela, just quickly in closing, do you agree with the General that you could see this matter back at the Constitutional Court?
Absolutely. We are already talking to our lawyers. We are taking this matter back to the Constitutional Court. We will probably not be alone. We'll be joined by all the civil society organizations which have been ignored by Parliament. We don't expect the NCOP to come up with anything different because, as General has said, members of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and NCOP, they take instructions from Lutuli House, and that's it. It is only the court which will save South Africa. Number two, the citizens of South Africa. We must educate them, show them that they are the people who should change the situation in South Africa.
Okay, definitely a story that we'll be following closely. And as I said earlier on, remember that deadline that has been set by the Constitutional Court, which is actually an extension as well, is the 10th of December 2022. So will the President have enacted the law by then? Thank you so much for choosing Unfiltered with me, Aldrin Simpier. See you again next week, Monday, same place, right here on S3. Tot ziens.